Hey, Shalom, y'all. First and foremost, I want to give all the praises, infinite glory, and the honor unto the Most High Yahweh in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahawahshaphat. I also want to give double honors to all the elders and all the Akim out there that's preaching and teaching His word in truth and in sincerity, doing everything to make it calling and election sure. Shalom to y'all and y'all families. I also want to say Shalom to all the Akim and the Akwathim out there that's out there receiving, learning, believing, and keeping the faith. Shalom to y'all and y'all families as well. It's Brother Malak Amawan, back in the spirit once again, here to feed the lambs and the sheep of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, and Lord will this lesson is edifying for the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel and the nation of Israel only. Today's lesson is going to the fact that when the Most High is heating up the spirit in that valley of Jehoshaphat, man, in that valley of Yahawahshaphat, that land over there in the Middle East, a lot of chaos and turmoil is starting to brew in that land over there, man. Meaning what? We will be closer and closer and closer to World War III prophecy. I just want to go ahead and start out with a quick precept. This is the book of Revelation, the 11th chapter and the 14th verse. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And we know the third woe is talking about, World War III, man. The second woe is talking about World War II. World War goes into destruction, death, annihilation. It's all synonymous with woe. So World War III is coming very nigh. And the Most High is really visiting this place en masse, to rev up that spirit in these nations, to stir up that spirit of war amongst all the nations, man. Let's also go to the book of 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter. This is the book of 2nd Ezra 9:1. He answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world in which he made. That's just going into when you see the prophecies come to fold, man. When you see these prophecies start coming to fold, that's how you know the Most High is about to visit this place in mass, man. The Most High is beginning to execute his vengeance and his judgment, his indignation upon the world for polluting the earth, sin, and ultimately getting this earth, shaken up and right, so that our people, the biblical Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, can go back and inhabit our land, New Jerusalem, and we can set up the earth to rule in righteousness under Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, and 144,000. Lord will us brothers be kind of worthy to be part of that number. But let's also get another precept before we get into the meat of the lesson. This is Amos 9:8. Behold, the eyes of the Lord Yahweh are upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from off the face of the earth, saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob, saith the Lord. And that's the thing right there, is the Most High, his eyes are visiting this place. Like we just read in 2nd Ezra 9, the 9th chapter, when we see these prophecies start coming to fold, we know the Most High's eyes are upon this sinful kingdom, and he's really visiting it en masse. He's transitioning from just looking at, just eyeing it. He's going into really visiting it in a more obscene way. And we see that through world events, which really is just prophecies of the scriptures coming to pass. But like the scriptures say, he won't utterly destroy the house of Jacob, meaning what? He won't utterly destroy it, meaning you are going to have some, of the house of Jacob that are going to be destroyed. But he won't utterly destroy it, meaning what? He has that remnant that he's going to save, and redeem from the trying times and the turmoil that's coming to this earth very, very soon. So with that right there, I want to go ahead and get into the meat of the lesson. We all know what's been going on in Afghanistan right now. The chaos and the turmoil that's been going on out there. Basically the Taliban has taken over once again and basically just invaded and just uprooted the Afghan government. So we see that spirit being put back on these Arabians, man, which we're going to get that. But we see that dragon-like, wild man-like spirit being put back on these Arabians, to execute what they want to do within their own country and land and whatnot. But on a greater scale, what this is doing is brewing up and revving up the spirit of war against other nations while in that land of the Middle East over there. So let's get into it. It says, after 20 years of war, the Taliban have swept to victory in Afghanistan. The group completed their shockingly rapid advance across the country, capturing Kabul on August 15th. And of course, this goes alongside with Biden pulling the American troops from Afghanistan as well. So it was a very easy takeover for the Taliban, which of course that's all, formulated, and that's all, how do I say this? That's all, predicted and whatnot, staged, planned and whatnot. But there is still a spiritual component to it, being that the Most High is controlling the spirits of these heathen nations to perform these acts, so that it can brew up and rev up the spirit of one nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom in society that we see right now. But continuing on, it says, it comes after foreign forces announced their withdrawal following a deal between the U.S. and the Taliban 2 decades after U.S. forces removed its militants from power in 2001. The conflict has killed tens of thousands of people and displaced millions. Taliban forces have pledged not to allow Afghanistan to become a base for terrorists who could threaten the West. But questions are already being asked about how the group will govern the country and what their rule means for women, human rights, and political freedoms. Now, on a lower level, the Taliban has invaded Afghanistan once again, or taken over the Afghan government once again, and that is gonna. They are. I mean, they're very austere, Islam, Muslims and whatnot. So they have a very strict rule of governing that they go by. And if you're not willing to go in according to their rule of government, you pretty much can get killed. You pretty much can get taken out, no matter who you are. So it's going to be that westernized spirit that's over in that land right now is being, with the Taliban taking over, is being, is being removed from that area, especially with the removal of American troops from that land as well. They're going back into very hardcore Sharia law and Islamic, very, very strict Islamic customs. So that's going to cause a lot of dissension between them and the people, that's going to, cause a lot of people to riot and protest and want to leave and want to get out of that land and whatnot. You're going to see a lot of people burning up shit in the streets. You're going to see a lot of war going on in that area. You're going to see a lot of destruction and chaos going on in that area. And like I said, all that is doing is revving up the spirit for the eventual World War III that's coming very quickly, as we read in Revelation, the 11th chapter. But continuing on, it says, why did the U.S. fight a war in let me get down to a different point. There's another point in this article I wanted to hit. What could happen next? How the Taliban plan to govern Afghanistan remains unclear. Women face an uncertain future. Taliban spokesperson Suhal Shaheen says the group will respect the rights of women and minorities as per Afghan norms and Islamic values. It's funny because look, this bitch got this bitch got a whole head covered, dog. Yeah, that shit is hilarious, man. This bitch got a whole head covered, a whole face covered. Man, them fucking Arab niggas don't play, dog. I tell you, man, they don't play, man. So it's gonna be like, you see, this picture right here is actually a perfect image, because it's gonna, pictures like this show and convey a humongous message that hardcore Islamic standard is about to be executed in that land once again. And if you are not willing to go along with that, you will be removed. You will be taken out and things of that nature. So there's a lot of people who are not going to be down with that. Now you are going to have some that's okay with it, but there's going to be a lot of people that's not going to be down with that. So you can see a lot of chaos brewing in that land of Afghanistan, continuing on for the foreseeable next few foreseeable months. But on a higher level, all that is doing once again is priming the stage for World War III, because you see you got Russia chiming in and whatnot, talking about how getting in bed with Taliban and all that, and then alongside America leaving, and America removing itself from Afghanistan. Now you got the stage set up for America versus Russia and Taliban, which we know that that being Gog and Magog according to the scriptures. Let's get a precept. This is Ezekiel 38 and 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Now the land of Gog and Magog is talking about the land mass of Russia. The chief prince of Meshech and Tubal is talking about whoever is leading in that land, whoever is reigning or the high-ranking face of prominence in that land at the moment. Right now, that man is Vladimir Putin. But whenever this prophecy ultimately comes to its fullness, we'll see then. But continuing on, it says, and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, and clothe them with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, and all of them with a shield and helmet. And I'm going to go down to verse 9. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. So thou and thy bands and many people with thee, meaning there's going to be plenty of people who are going to be who are going to come against America in that day. Now that's also talking about the land of Israel as well, in regards to the fake Jews that are inhabiting that land right now, which we'll get into that later on in this lesson. But ultimately, because they're in bed with America, and likewise America with Israel, Israel with America, that's ultimately talking about both. So, with America removing troops from that land, Russia chiming in, teaming up with or basically starting to get in bed with Taliban, you're starting to see that spirit of continuity between nations against Babylon, and coming up against and the priming for the nations coming up against Babylon in that land right there, in that Middle Eastern land. As we can see, that's the headquarters for all the chaos is going on in terms of war and violence and confusion and chaos, is in that Middle Eastern land right there. Let's go to the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter. This is the book of Joel 3 and 1. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, or Yahawahshaphat in the ancient Hebrew, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. So when it goes to and will plead with them, they're just basically going into the Most High is going to gather all these nations into this land. So going back to Ezekiel 38, as we talked about with Russia and all the other lands, and going into verse 9, where it talks about basically a lot of people with thee, you and all the people that are going to accompany you, in that accompany Gog and Magog, against the land of Israel and America in that day. We're seeing the priming of that in the valley of Jehoshaphat. So, that specifically is talking about east of Jerusalem, but in the land of Israel. But that's that Middle Eastern land in general. So we see, Israel, Syria, Iran, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, all of these countries. You see a lot of chaos and turmoil brewing up in that land right there. That's because the Most High is pouring out his spirit of indignation and using these heathen nations to fight against one another for our sake, so that we can inhabit our land once again. But that's not the point of this lesson in terms of our land. That's a whole nother lesson for another day with us getting the land back. But basically, the Most High is pouring that spirit upon all these other heathen nations to basically duke it out in war, and he's brewing that right now with nations teaming up with each other against Babylon in bed with Israel, which that's been going on for a long time, but Babylon in bed with Israel and coming back for Israel and things of that nature, and Babylon separating itself and removing itself from having the backs of these other heathen nations, in terms of basically this is a sign right here with Joe Biden removing the troops from Afghanistan, a sign that, or a token of, or representation of Babylon or America not having the backs of the Afghan people. So so you basically you turn your back on Afghanistan. So now it's Taliban versus America now, and now they have said that it's not for terrorist reasons and things of that nature. They're not going to have any terrorist attacks on the West and all that. But that's not the point of this, because that might happen. But the higher level point is that the nations are going to be at war with each other. The two nations are at odds and whatnot, and that's going to brew up more of a warlike spirit upon that's coming to the time period we're in right now. So I'm going to get another precept as well. Actually, before I get that, let's go into another article. It says Hamas fires first rockets at Israel since the May war. So we know a few months back there was a big time dispute between Israel and Persia, or Iran, Hamas. And they were going back and forth. Gaza and all that kind of stuff. The Gaza Strip and all that. They was going back and forth. Sending warning shots back and forth. America was chiming in and sending shots and whatnot. And basically America was chiming in on the back of Israel and all that against Persia. So, this is another sign right here that the Most High, and once again in the land of the Middle East, the Most High is pouring out that spirit of war and contention amongst nations. So Israel and Persia or Iran are still at it right now, and that's interesting because when you tie in the Iranian factor or the Persian factor with Arabia, you'll see how it all comes together according to prophecy to come against Babylon. We got Iran, aka Persia, against Israel. Israel is in bed with Babylon, or Babylon in bed with Israel. So those two are at odds with each other. Arabia also, U.S. has withdrawn troops from Afghanistan. Now we know that there's a subsector in Afghanistan called the Afghan Arabs. So U.S. against Arabia, right then and there, removing troops and all that, basically brewing up that spirit of contention amongst them. Now you got Russia getting in bed with Taliban, basically Russia teaming up and whatnot, coming against who? America, Babylon. Let's get another precept. Slovakia. Let's go to the book of 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter. 2nd Ezra 15 and 28. Behold, an horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east. So a horrible vision and appearance thereof, basically a prophecy that hasn't been foretold, a prophecy that's coming to pass, that's going to come to pass later. And we're in that time period right now where we're in the beginning stages of this prophecy coming to pass. Where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon earth, and all they which hear them may fear and tremble. So what do we got right now, man? We got Arabia, coming out with their many chariots, their forces, their weaponry, their weapons of war, their power and their might in the form of Taliban, man. The multitude of them being carried as the wind upon the earth, meaning destruction or forceful removal, and all which hear them may fear and tremble. So you got a lot of people in that land right now who are fearing and trembling, who are running, seeking protection, who are trying to seek protection from the American troops, but Joe Biden has removed the troops and is actively pulling soldiers from that land as we speak right now. So they're in a humongous state of fear and trembling because they don't want to go back to that hardcore, harsh Islamic standard that's going to come with Taliban overruling the Afghani government. and the removal of the American troops symbolizes the removal of Western standard or Western society infiltration and propaganda. And so, with that being said, that causes a big state of fear and trouble amongst the people. You have to live by this standard, and if you don't live by this standard, if you're against it, we're gonna persecute you and kill you. They've been killing people out there in like in Afghanistan right now who have Bibles. Now, of course, we know they're not the people of the book anyway, so it's not for them. But which you do have some Israelites out there, but in mass, they're heathens, so it's not for them anyway. But that's just a representation of showing that anyone who's against the hardcore Islamic standard is deemed a terrorist and a threat to the implementation of their form of religion and culture and rulership. So basically, what I'm saying is going to have a lot of people who are going to be fearing and trembling at the sight of that. Now, this is not ultimately fulfilled yet. This is just the beginning process of that, because ultimately this is talking about World War III. But we're in the priming stages of it right now, where the Most High is pouring out that spirit upon those people to take on that more warlike spirit and that more forceful spirit in regards to getting things done they want to get done. But going into verse 30, now we're tying in the Arabians with the Iranians, and we're seeing, like I was going to earlier with Iran and Arabia, them basically together against Babylon and Israel, because we got Israel, you got Arabia. I mean, we got Salah, we got Hamas, the Persians, the Iranians against the Israelis. We had a big dispute back a few months ago, but now that spirit is coming back, as we see right here. Warning shots. Rockets are being fired once again. The Most High is pouring out that spirit on them once again. It hasn't removed that spirit from them ultimately. That spirit of war. So it says, also going into verse 30, it says, also the Carmanians raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood. Now the Carmanians are talking or in reference to Persia/Iran. Basically Carmania is an ancient kingdom in that land over there. So that's who that's in reference to. It's a reference to the Iranians or the Persians. But going into it, it says also the Carmanians or the Iranians, the Persians, raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, with great power shall they come and join battle with them. With who? The Arabians, man. So the Carmanians or the Persians/Iranians are going to join in forces with the Arabians. Both of them, ironically, who are against Babylon, man. So we see by proxy, because Iran is against Persia. I mean, Iran is against Israel, and Israel's in bed with Babylon. The spirit is brewing up where Arabia is against Babylon, with the troops being removed and that protection from America not being there anymore. Also, with Russia coming in as well against all against Babylon and Israel. So those two are going to be teaming up in World War III to fight against Babylon and Israel. So we see biblical prophecy playing out before our very eyes, man. But continuing on, and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. And when it talks about the land of the Assyrians right here, this is just in reference to America. This is just in reference to Babylon. It's not actually talking about literal Assyria. So we see that spirit being brewed up more and more and more in the times we headed into. Basically, like I said, the Most High is visiting this place, and He's pouring out that spirit of indignation and wrath and contention amongst nations for the ultimate battle, being the war of all wars, being World War III, the war to end all wars, and basically cleanse out that land in the Middle East right there. But going back, just proving how that ties into World War III. Ezekiel 38 and Okay, so Ezekiel 38. So let me go back up and then I'll go down. Ezekiel 38 and 4. So as we got earlier, that land of Gog and Magog talking about Russia. Now we got verse 5, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all with shield and helmet. So all Persia, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya. So we focusing on Persia because that's, what's in the news right now. So Persia, the Iranians, are going to be teaming up with Gog and Magog. Now you got Russia getting comfortable, getting cozy with Taliban, the Arabians, but we also know according to prophecy, going back to what we just read in 2nd Ezra 15, that the Persians and the Arabians are going to team up together. So when you read Persia right there, you can read that as Persia and Arabia, the two nations that are, that you got a lot of news going on right now. But both of those nations are going to be against Babylon. Let's continue down. And when I say Babylon, I'm referencing the land of Israel being them and America, because, Israel and America are in bed together. But continuing on. Verse 18, 38 and 18, Ezekiel. And it shall come to pass at the same time when God shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord Yahweh, that my fury shall come in my face. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel. So there's going to be a great shaking, meaning what? A great war, man. World War III. Going back to Joel the 3rd chapter, that war in the valley of Jehoshaphat or Yahawahshaphat. So that's the time period that we headed into, man. And we see the Most High pouring out that spirit, like I said earlier, the Most High pouring out that spirit upon all these heathen nations to brew up contention amongst each other, so that war can be fought. Because it says right here in verse 18, time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel. So Gog being Russia, but also being the other nations who are going to team up with Russia, Persia, Arabia, and all the two that we focus on in this lesson, but all the other nations that are going to team up with them as well. They're all going to fight in that land, in that land of Jehoshaphat, against the land of Israel and Babylon, because Babylon and the land of Israel are together. So proving, that proves 2nd Ezra, let me just go back to it real quick. That proves 2nd Ezra 15 and 30, that this land, the land of the Assyrians, is talking about America, basically. It's not actually talking about literal Assyria. And shall waste the portion of the land of the Assyrians. So I want to get one more precept just to show that as well. That Syria being America part. Slovakia. I think it's in 2nd Ezra. I don't see it right now. If the spirit comes back on, I'll get it. But basically that land is talking about America. Now we also see the Most High judging the land of Israel right now with a lot of destruction and chaos, man. Just showing and proving right there that those people are not the people of the book, man. Because why is there no peace in the land? So I just want to round it out with that point. So now I want to go to Jeremiah the 33rd chapter and go down to 7. Jeremiah 33 and 7. I will cause the captivity of Judah and the captivity of Israel to return, and will that's a lot. That is it. Jeremiah 33 and 7. And I will cause the captivity of Judah and the captivity of Israel to return, and will build them as at the first. And I will cleanse them from all their iniquity whereby they have sinned against me. I will pardon all their iniquities whereby they have sinned, and whereby they have transgressed against me. And it shall be to me a name of joy, a praise and honor before all the nations of the earth, which shall hear all the good that I do unto them. And they shall fear and tremble for all the goodness and for all the prosperity that I procure unto it. So this don't sound like goodness and prosperity to me. So it just proves that they don't fulfill any of these prophets. This is just one scripture. There's just plenty of scriptures, but this is just one scripture that proves these people are not the people of the book, man. This don't sound like goodness and prosperity to me. Because we know the Most High controls all. He controls good and he controls evil. Shall there be a trumpet in the land, and the Most High have not done it? Let's get that. Not a trumpet, but judgment in the land. Amos, the 3rd chapter. Amos 3 and 6. Shall a trumpet be blown in the city? So like that's the first phrase. Shall a trumpet be blown in the city, and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in the city, and the Lord hath not done it? So this is evil in the city right here, man. You see fires going on everywhere. You know, people having to leave their homes and evacuate and whatnot. You see what? Because also too, you go into this. It says Israel asked allies for help as wildfires rage near Jerusalem. So you've got a whole bunch of wildfires raging near Jerusalem, and you're seeking a bunch of these allies, man. If you're the real people of the book, and you're supposed to be living in goodness and prosperity, why on the Most High? First off, the Most High wouldn't even be doing that. He wouldn't even be sending a wildfire, because like it says, shall there be evil in the city, and the Lord hath not done it. So the Most High is doing this. So this proves and shows that you're not the people of the book, because you're not fulfilling the prophecy of goodness and prosperity in the land. Because you got wildfires going crazy, and also you seeking other allies for help, man. So, and that's another thing that shows and proves right there that, you know, with World War III and the land of Israel in the Ezekiel 38 chapter, that's not just talking about just Israel, just singularly, man. That's Israel and all its allies in that day. So that's just an aside right there, just a point to show that these people are not the people of the book. But anyway, it's heating up in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, man. We see a lot of shit going on. We see a lot of judgment starting to pop off in that land. I just wanted to give a quick synopsis of that and just prophecy of the scriptures. Basically, just going into how this is just brewing World War III. Let's get another precept just to round that out. I think Isaiah 19 chapter. Let me just go to Isaiah 19. Slakia. That's not the one I wanted, but this is a good one too. But that's not the one I wanted. I'm going to go to Matthew 24th chapter. Matthew 24 and 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. So we see a nation against nation right here, man, with Israel and Iran, with Arabia or / Afghanistan, the Arab Afghan or Afghan Arab against Babylon, Russia coming in and getting close with Taliban. Their own government, their own off sector of force, rebelling against its government. You see a lot of nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom right now. So it's like we know that the Most High is just pouring out that spirit of destruction and woe unto all these nations for the upcoming and for brewing, for World War III, which is coming very, very soon. So with that, I just want to give all the praise, glory, and honor unto the Most High, Yahweh, Yahawahshaphat, the Lord was less edifying for the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, and the nation of Israel only. Shalom, Abba, keep the faith.